Well, hi there, I'm Noah Bradley with Handmade House TV. Welcome to this week's episode, where today I'm going to share with you about sand. And I promise you it's going to be a great episode if you just stay tuned. We're going to go off into my usual waffling and tangents off to the side, and it's going to delve into the cost of your home and the cost of what you hear other people building their home, and some tips on how to save money and how to correctly calculate it. Anyway, it's going to be a good one. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about sand. All right, let me share with you some about sand today. You will know by the end of it, you'll know everything there is to know about sand. I'm standing here in front of a pile of sand. Actually, it's a bag of sand that I've bought and that I'm going to use for building the stone columns on my driveway on my new piece of land. And it was delivered here in this nice little bag sitting on top of a pallet, and it was dropped off by a forklift, and voila, here it is, all neatly packaged, practically gift wrapped. And it's all of the sand that I will need to use to build these stone columns of mine. If this is all the construction I'm planning on doing, a small project such as columns, really this bag, which is, I think it's a ton and a half of sand, is all that I'm going to need for it. Now, when you buy sand, typically there are two different kinds of sand. This sand is a fine sand. Here locally, when we order it, we call it red brick sand. And it's primarily, if you're going to chink your log cabin, this is the kind of sand you want to use. You don't want any pebbles in it whatsoever. If you're doing tile work, if you're laying brick, if you're laying block, then this is it's the most common kind of sand that one can buy. Now, it works good on stone work. Typically, if I'm doing stone work, I like to get more of a pebbly grade. They call it concrete sand, and that's what they mix in with gravel and cement, and they create concrete with the thick stuff that are make slabs with. And I have heard it under theory goes is that when you're laying stone, you don't want, because stone is so heavy, you don't want it to squish all of your mortar, all of your cement out when you lay the stone. And so if you use a little bit more of a pebbly grade sand when you're laying stone, that you'll have less of a problem with that. You know, I think it's a little bit of a perfectionism. I haven't noticed that much of a difference. If I am doing a large stone project, a stone on my house, a stone chimney, then I will buy concrete grade sand. When I'm just doing something as small and as columns, and I'm probably going to have some leftover sand and I could use that to chink my log cabin, I went ahead and bought red brick sand here. Now, actually, sand is a very affordable thing to purchase. The real beast behind paying for sand is that act of getting it from where it is to where you are. You know, for me to have loaded this up into my pickup truck, I have no doubt that it would have taken me probably 2 trips, and it would have been safer if I did it in 3. And to shovel all of that onto my truck and then to unshovel it at the other end is pretty major. So basically what you have to do in order to get sand delivered to your property, you have to pay a delivery fee for it to get to your property. And this is the real kicker, and that is that if you're going to be building your house, if you're going to be building something, it really is smart to get as much sand as you can. If you figure up that you need 12 tons of sand in order to do your own house, but it could be more than that. A lot of times the delivery fee, the final overall cost with delivery fee for 12 tons of sand delivered and a full truck of 20 tons of sand delivered, they're about the same. So a lot of times when it comes to buying stone for our home, getting lumber for it, or in particular in buying sand, that you get a full load. You get a dump truck load of it, and you get it dumped to your property. Now I do, when I get sand, if I'm getting it delivered in the dump truck, I do like to put down a layer of plastic on the ground so that the sand goes on it. It makes the last bit of sand useful. It's not being mixed in with other stuff. And it keeps a good division line between it and the soil beneath it. And also, I like to cover my sand. It's not that sand will wash away, but it keeps the sand at a consistency of moisture, a consistent moisture level. And that is that when you're mixing cement, if your sand is really wet, you need to add a whole lot less water. If your sand is dry and powdery, then you need to add a whole lot more, and it creates a little bit of confusion, and sometimes you end up with messier mortar when it comes time. And then also, if you're building something in the woods, such as what I'm building, you end up with a lot of leaves in the sand, and not to mention cats sometimes will like to think that it's their sandbox, and so they will leave little surprises for you in it. So I do like to get a little piece of plastic and cover it over at the end of the day, just to keep water out of it and to keep it dry. So on sunny days I'll keep it open so that it'll dry, and then I cover it up, make sure that it never gets wet. Now back when I built my second home, the $500 home, I gathered my own sand from the local stream beds and river beds, and I would shovel it up and mix it in with the cement in order to create mortar for my stonework. And there are a few people out there, very few, that actually have a problem with that. Some will argue that maybe there's some organic matter that's being mixed into it, sediment or whatever, into the sand, and somehow or another that makes your concrete, your cement, your mortar mix weaker. And but that's not my problem. It's not what I've found. And if you are shoveling up and you do notice there's excessive organic matter in it, then I would go ahead and recommend maybe cleaning it a bit, put it in a bucket, swirl it around, let the organic matter float, and then pour it off of there. But I didn't have a problem with that. Now, when I built this $500 house of mine, from beginning to end, I used a lot of salvage material I gathered, and so when I came up with a $500 fee, total for the whole cost of it, the cost of the cement I used for the stone piers for the foundation, I factored that into the $500, but I factored in $0 for the sand, since it was free for the gathering and I went out and shoveled it. But that's part of the problem that we hear in individuals who are building homes that sound too good to be true as far as the final price tag of it goes. Did the house really cost $500? And the fact of the matter is that on a lot of things, I mean, I built the entire home out of salvage material, that I did, in the coming up with the $500, it was entirely the dollar output that I paid out. But in creating that $500 house, I put tens of thousands of dollars of my own labor, and as well as some gas and hauling things such as sand in order to do that home. So you might really want to reflect on that. I have built a home where technically the sand was free for it, for the gathering. And as a builder, I have built homes that had several chimneys on it, a stone foundation, stone basement, and that is where the total bill came to $2,000 or more, perhaps as much as $3,000 worth of sand went into building the home. And sounds kind of high. So sometimes when I hear I built my home for $500 or I built my home for $1,000, and I realize that I've built homes where the sand cost multiples of that, it makes one a little bit skeptical of the actual cost of it. Now, here recently, when I built, in a previous episode, I built a stonemason's table for you guys, and I showed you that how important it is to have a stonemason's table. It's a great work table to work off when you're doing stonework. There's so much involved in stonework is down on the ground or below ground, building the footers. You're down, and the rocks tend to be down on the ground. The tools are on the ground. The water's down there. Everything is low, and it sure is a wonderful thing to be able to bring your work up so that you can stand erect. You can analyze something. You can view it. You can work on it at a work table's height, and you'll tend to do a better job as a result of that. So I highly encourage building a work table. And it's important for this work table, which is basically a bowl at the top, that you fill it with sand. And so I went down to my local nearby river, very close to the home that I live in right now, and I went looking around to find what I thought was the cleanest, the purest looking sand around there. Some of it's mud, some of it's heavily grown up in grass. Some of it's got more rocks in it than what I cared to use, and I was able to fairly quickly shovel up a few bucket loads of sand down there, and it worked like a charm for me, and it cost nothing, and it contributed to the low cost and being able to put together the stone fireplace that I built for the Stonemason Academy. Well, all right, that about wraps it up for this week's episode of Handmade House TV. Before we go, I'd like to thank 5 new members of the Handmade House Guild: Dennis Reynolds, Mike Kanowski, Keith Grimm, Ej Rares, and Dana Simon. Thank you so much for supporting the Handmade House Guild and for your kind words about all the courses and benefits within it. For those of you who aren't a member, please consider joining us. Your support is greatly appreciated. Until next week, we'll see you then.